Welcome to today's video. It is chapter 10, lesson 4. It's all about the Pythagorean theorem. This P word, this long fancy P word, is just someone's last name. This guy right here. His last name was Pythagoras, and he lived 500 BC, so about 2,500 years ago. He was from Greece. He was a philosopher. He was a mathematician. He was a scientist. He started the first university. And he did not create this theorem, but he gets credit for this theorem. This theorem, he kind of gets known as the guy who did it, the guy who came up with this rule. And his rule was this. If you have a square whose area is 9 inches, 9 centimeters, 9 whatever, that means that one side, this side right here, would be 3 inches. And then you have a second square. This square is 16 inches squared, which means that each side of it would be 4 inches. And if I create a right angle with these two squares, this square that has 9 inches and this square that has 16 inches, and I create 90-degree angle, and then I try to close it up, and I make a triangle out of it, the area of that square will be whatever 9 plus 16 is. So the area of that square will be 25. This side right here of that would be 5 inches. But isn't that interesting that the sum of this area is always the sum of these two. Whatever these two add up to be will always be that third side if this is a right triangle. So Pythagoras gets credit for noticing this pattern. Let's talk about some vocabulary words. This is going to be called A, this guy is going to be called B, and this guy over here is going to be called C. A and B are the two sides that make the 90-degree angle. C is always the side across from the 90-degree angle. A and B, and really I could switch these around. This could be A, this could be B, but A and B are these two guys. C is here. C will always be the longest one of the three numbers. It'll always be the longest side. And if we go back to this idea of area, and area, we could write this rule as A squared, right? 3 is A, and if I square it, I get 9, plus B squared. Remember, this was 4, and if I square it, I get the whole area of 16. Will always equal, isn't that amazing? It will always equal C squared. C is 5, and if I create a square out here, then the area of that square is 25. More vocabulary words. A and B are called legs. C has a really long, weird H word, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So if I take, instead of writing A, I can say Pythagoras' theorem by saying if I take one leg and I square it, and I add it to the other leg squared, it will always equal the hypotenuse squared. So that's just another way of writing his rule, his pattern, the thing he noticed. All right, it's time for your first question. My question here is, what is the 20 called? What would we call the side that is 20? All right, what'd you type in? I would accept C or hypotenuse. 20 is the C. 20 is also the hypotenuse, which means the 12 and the 16 are legs. All right, your second question, I twisted the right triangle and made it look at it like a different shape, different orientation. And my question is, which numbers are legs? 5, 12, 13. Which numbers are legs? Well, if you remember, the longest number will always be the hypotenuse. So that means 5 and 12 are both legs. 5 and 12 are the two sides that make the right angle. So if we know two sides, we can use Pythagoras' rule to figure out the third side. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. These two numbers are either going to be a and b and c, a and c. This guy will be whatever's left over. So these two make the right angle. They are legs. Legs are a and b. It doesn't matter what I put where, so I'm going to put 8 squared plus 6 squared. I could write 6 squared plus 8 squared. It doesn't matter. That means x is my c. Okay, order of operations. I square this to get 64, 8 times 8. I square this to get 36. That's equal to x squared. Now I add 64 and 36, that makes 100. What number do I want to get rid of? I want to get rid of the exponent. So I square root both sides. That takes away the tiny 2, and I'm just have an x. Square root of 100 is 10. So this guy right here was 10. Most of the time, the answers will not be whole numbers. This was just really nice. It happened to be a whole number, but there's not a whole lot of options that will be whole numbers. So most of the time, you're going to have to pull out a calculator and use your calculator on this final step and round to the nearest tenth. Usually the book will say round to the nearest tenth. So let's try this blue example. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. These two guys are my legs again. 5 squared plus 8 squared. X is my hypotenuse. 5 squared is 25. 8 squared is 64. Add them up, I get 89. Well, I know that if it was 91, it would be 9. So this is going to be close to 9. Square root, pull out your calculator. All right, so on this calculator, I'm going to hit the square root button. 89 equals, round to the nearest tenth. So is it 9.4 or is it 9.5? The neighbor makes it stay 9.4 because he's just a teeny neighbor. So the side is about 9.4 inches, centimeters, whatever the label would be. All right, here's your last question of the video. Try to find out the missing side. And I gave you another one that will be a whole number, but you can pull out your calculator to do the square rooting. You could also use your calculator to square 24 times 24. But try to find this side and type in your answer. All right, did you get 26? You should have gotten 26. 10 squared plus 24 squared equals x squared. 100 plus 576 equals x squared. 376 equals x squared. Square root both sides to get rid of the exponent. And the square root of 376 should be 26.